Good afternoon, boys and girls. Now that you're done with cholinergic system, let's learn about adrenergic system or adrenergic drugs, the drugs which act on the adrenergic system. So myself, Dr. Ramesh Chandra, I'll be taking a class on adrenergic drugs. So before we start the class, let's know the learning objectives. Mainly, the class is the learning objectives are classify adrenergic drugs, and apart from that, describe the mechanism of action of adrenergic drugs, and then enumerate the doses of commonly used adrenergic drugs. So what are the various drugs that are used? And describe the side effects, indications, and contraindications of adrenergic drugs. And apart from that, classify adrenergic agonists based on their therapeutic uses as well as their actions, and describe the pharmacological effects of adrenaline and correlate the effects of their therapeutic uses and then adverse effects. State the salient pharmacokinetic features of adrenaline. So these are the learning objectives. And then let's get along with the class. So these are commonly known as sympathomimetic drugs. Owing to their actions, they have actions mimicked similar to that of sympathetic stimulation, or they mimic the actions of catecholamines at the neuroeffector sites. So as I've told you, these are sympathomimetic drugs, and they mimic the actions of sympathetic stimulation, or they have the actions which mimic the action of catecholamines at the neuroeffector sites. So they are mainly classified into directly acting, indirectly acting, as well as mixed action. So this classification is mainly based on their mode of action. So they are classified into directly acting and then indirectly acting as well as mixed action. So now let's see what are all the different drugs which are present. Right, catecholamines. Catecholamines, these contain a catechol nucleus, and this catechol nucleus contains a benzene ring with two adjacent OH groups. As you can see in the picture, this is a catechol nucleus and has got two OH groups. And apart from this, it also has got an amine containing side chain. So these catecholamines, they contain a catechol nucleus. This catechol nucleus consists of a benzene ring with two adjacent OH groups, and then it has also got an amine containing side chain. So based on their action, these drugs, as I've told you, classified as endogenous and then synthetic. So based on the mode of action, these drugs are classified as endogenous. So we have drugs like noradrenaline or norepinephrine. So in some parts they call it as noradrenaline, whereas in some parts it's called as norepinephrine. But both are one and the same. You can call either ways or either ways. And then adrenaline, it's the same way, just like norepinephrine. In some parts it's being called as adrenaline, and in some areas they call it as epinephrine. And then we have dopamine. And these are a couple of synthetic drugs. Mainly we have drugs like isoprenaline, dipivefrin, and then dobutamine, dopixamine, as well as phenyldopam. So noradrenaline or norepinephrine is a major neurotransmitter in the postganglionic sympathetic neurons. The cell bodies present in the sympathetic ganglia. So the stimulation produces physiological as well as metabolic responses mediated mainly by norepinephrine. So this is one of the major neurotransmitter which is present in the postganglionic sympathetic neurons, and their stimulation produces physiological as well as metabolic responses. Epinephrine or adrenaline is a primary hormone which is secreted mainly by the adrenal medulla. So stress stimulates the release of epinephrine. So as you all know, stress or strain, basically stress, it stimulates the release of adrenaline or epinephrine. So epinephrine secretion also increases in response to glucagon, histamine, as well as angiotensin 2 and bradykinase. So stress is not only the factor which helps or which stimulates the release of epinephrine. Apart from that, epinephrine secretion is also increased in cases like in conditions in response to glucagon or histamine or angiotensin 2 as well as bradykinin. And dopamine is the metabolic precursor of norepinephrine as well as epinephrine. So dopamine is the precursors of these both epinephrine as well as norepinephrine. So as you can see in this picture, tyrosine gets converted to dopa, dopa gets converted to dopamine, and then dopamine gets converted to norepinephrine and as well as epinephrine. So tyrosine gets converted to dopa, which is carried out, or the reaction is carried out by an enzyme called tyrosine hydroxylase. So this dopa gets converted to dopamine, and this is carried out by an enzyme called as L-aromatic amino acid decarboxylase. And this dopamine stored in the vesicle membrane gets converted to norepinephrine, and it is carried out by an enzyme called as dopamine beta hydroxylase. So this is how dopamine norepinephrine is synthesized. So it's synthesized from tyrosine. So uptake of catecholamines. So we have two mechanisms wherein the uptake of catecholamines takes place, that is uptake 1 as well as uptake 2. So we have axonal uptake wherein there is picking up of catecholamines from the extracellular space by the axoplasm of the adrenergic neurons. So there is an active amine pump which is present in the neural membrane, which aids in the transport of noradrenaline and norepinephrine. So uptake 1 has got greater affinity for norepinephrine, and catecholamines taken up by uptake 1 are then transferred to the storage vesicles in the adrenergic neurons. So uptake of catecholamines is mainly by uptake 1 and uptake 2. So there is picking up of catecholamines from the extracellular space by exoplasm of the adrenergic neurons, and an active pump called as active amine pump, which is present in the neural membrane, aids in the transport of norepinephrine. So uptake 1 has got greater affinity towards norepinephrine, and catecholamines taken up by uptake 1 are then transferred to the storage vesicles in the adrenergic neurons. So this uptake is most important mechanism for terminating the post-junctional action of norepinephrine. Nearly 80 to 90% of the released norepinephrine is retaken back into the neuron. Vesicular uptake. The membranes of intracellular vesicles has another amine pump, the vesicular monoamine transporter. This transports catecholamines from the exoplasm to the interior of the storage vesicles. This carrier also takes up dopamine formed in the exoplasm for further synthesis of norepinephrine. So as we have discussed, we have uptake mechanism, that is uptake 1 and uptake 2. So uptake 1 we have axonal as well as vesicular uptake, and then uptake 2 extraneuronal uptake. It is a picking up of catecholamines by the effector cells in the peripheral tissues, such as the vascular smooth muscle, heart, and exocrine glands. Uptake 2 has got greater affinity for epinephrine and then isoprenaline, whereas uptake 1 has got greater affinity for norepinephrine. Uptake 2 is nothing but picking up of catecholamines by the effector cells in the peripheral tissues. So these are mainly, taken up from such as vascular smooth muscles, heart, and exocrine glands. So uptake 2 has got greater affinity for epinephrine as well as isoprenaline. So let's see the adrenergic neurotransmission and the drugs which affect it. So tyrosine, as I've told you, it's one of the important, it's the precursor of all these neurotransmitters, mainly being dopamine, norepinephrine, and adrenaline. So tyrosine gets converted to L-DOPA, which is carried out by an enzyme called as tyrosine hydroxylase. So L-DOPA gets converted to dopamine. So under the action of DOPA decarboxylase. So eventually dopamine becomes homovalenic acid, HVA. And this dopamine gets converted to norepinephrine, which is carried out by dopamine beta hydroxylase. And its end products, norepinephrine, under the action of monoamine oxidase as well as catechol-methyltransferates get converted to normetanephrine and then vanillyl mandelic acid, VME. This norepinephrine gets converted to epinephrine. So epinephrine gets converted to metaepinephrine, which is carried out by COMT. So as you can see here, tyrosine is the precursor basically. This gets converted to dopamine, norepinephrine as well as epinephrine. The end products or metabolic products of this dopamine or norepinephrine, epinephrine are homovalenic acid, vanillyl mandelic acid as well as metanephrine. So this is the synthesis as well as synthesis and metabolism of catecholamines. So look at this picture. If you draw this picture in the exam, you will have awarded good marks. So starting we have the tyrosine and ending with epinephrine. So tyrosine gets converted to L-DOPA and then this L-DOPA gets converted to dopamine and its end product is homovalenic acid or metabolic end product and then dopamine gets converted to norepinephrine. So under the action of MOA and COM2, it forms vanillyl mandelic acid and norepinephrine gets converted to epinephrine. So COMT acts on it or metabolizes or degrades it into metanephrine. Metabolism of catecholamines. So actions of norepinephrine and epinephrine are terminated by VAS, uptake 1 and uptake 2. So basically the actions of this norepinephrine as well as epinephrine are terminated by uptake 1 and uptake 2 mechanisms. So metabolic degradation of by MOA and COMT. So basically the action of these norepinephrine, epinephrine are terminated by uptake mechanism, that's uptake 1 and uptake 2. And apart from this, their metabolic degradation is carried out by MOA, that is monoamine oxidase as well as catechol-methyltransferase. So we have learned in the previous slide that they form HVA, VMA as well as metanephrine. So dopamine forms HVA and then norepinephrine gets degraded to VMA and then epinephrine gets degraded to metanephrine. So all these degradation process is carried out by mainly two enzymes called as MOA as well as COMT, that is monoamine oxidase as well as catechol-methyltransferase. So the end products or the degraded products are VMA, HVA as well as metanephrine. So basically the metabolism, the actions of these both the neurotransmitters is terminated by two mechanisms, that is uptake 1 as well as uptake 2. And their metabolic degradation is mainly carried out by MOA as well as COMT. And the metabolic degradation products are VMA, HVA, VMA as well as metanephrine. So you look at this picture carefully, and then if you understand this, so you can easily write the synthesis as well as metabolism of catecholamines. As I've told you, these catecholamines are degraded by MOA. So MOA is of two types, monoamine oxidase A as well as B. So monoamine mainly oxidizes norepinephrine and 5-HT, and monoamine oxidase B, it oxidizes dopamine in the brain. Adrenergic receptors, these are basically membrane-bound G protein coupled receptors, and they are classified into two types, mainly alpha as well as beta. So alpha we have alpha 1 and alpha 2, and beta there are three types, beta 1, beta 2, and beta 3. So let's discuss in detail about these receptors. Alpha 1 receptors. or alpha-1 adrenergic receptors. They are present postsynaptically and predominantly in the vascular smooth muscles. So these are, as I've told you, these are basically adrenergic receptors are basically membrane-bound G protein coupled receptors, and they are classified into alpha and beta. Alpha, we have alpha 1 and alpha 2, and then beta, beta 1, beta 2, beta 3. So let's discuss in detail. Alpha receptors that basically present postsynaptically, and they're predominantly in the vascular smooth muscles. So distributed mainly in the vascular smooth muscles, salivary glands, bronchi, uterus, radial muscles of iris, liver cells, gut, and genitourinary smooth muscles. So when activated by an agonist, they produce excitatory effects. So these are basically G protein coupled receptors. The activated GQ protein increases IP3, inositol triphosphate, or diacylglyceride, the production. So there is increased production of these two, thereby causing mobilization of calcium from the intracellular organelle. And then there is activation of calmodulin dependent myosin light chain kinase, whereby there is phosphorylation of myosin and you see an action contraction is seen. So there is an exception wherein intestines they produce inhibitory effect, that is they call relaxation effect. And then alpha 2 receptors basically they are present presynaptically and then postsynaptically. So mainly distributed in nerve terminals, brain, pancreatic beta cells, platelets, guts, as well as vessels. So alpha 2 receptors are present presynaptically as well as postsynaptically and mainly distributed in nerve terminals, brain, pancreatic beta cells, platelets, guts, as well as vessels. So the activation of these alpha 2 receptors in the adrenergic nerve inhibits noradrenaline release. The activation of postsynaptic vascular alpha 2 receptors release EDRF, and therefore there is vasodilatation and fall in blood pressure. Activation of venous alpha 2 receptors causes venoconstriction. And in the brain, the alpha 2 receptors, whether present pre or postsynaptically, they decrease the sympathetic outflow upon the activation. So the activation of these alpha 2 receptors in the adrenergic nerve inhibits the release of noradrenaline. Apart from that, the activation of these postsynaptic vascular alpha 2 receptors release EDRF, and then they cause vasodilatation, and hence there is fall in blood pressure. Activation of venous alpha 2 receptors causes venous constriction. So there is increased blood pressure. So in the brain, the alpha 2 receptors, whether present pre or postsynaptically, there is decrease in the sympathetic outflow upon their activation. Presynaptic alpha 2 receptors are also located on the cholinergic nerve terminals of the gut. When these receptors are activated by noradrenaline, the release of acetylcholine is decreased from the cholinergic neuron, leading to relaxation. Beta 2 receptors or beta 2 adrenergic receptors. So they are basically postsynaptically found, and the distribution is mainly in the heart as well as GJ cells of the kidney. So on the heart, these receptors activation by noradrenaline as well as adrenaline produces excitatory effect. That is, they cause positive inotropic effect. That is, there is increased force of contraction. And apart from that, they have got positive chronotropic effect also. That is, there is increased heart rate. And on the kidneys, they promote renin release. Beta 2 receptors, they are present presynaptically as well as postsynaptically. And distribution. So predominantly on the bronchi, blood vessels, supplied to skeletal muscles, coronary arteries, uterus, GIT, as well as urinary tract. So predominantly on the bronchi. Apart from that, they are also present on blood vessels supplying to skeletal muscles, They are also present in the coronary arteries, uterus, GIT, as well as urinary tract. And they are mainly responsible for bronchial smooth muscle relaxation, skeletal muscle vasodilatation, as well as uterine relaxation. So activation of these presynaptic beta-2 receptors by norepinephrine or noradrenaline or epinephrine facilitates the neurotransmitter release, which is opposite to the presynaptic alpha-2 receptors. So activation of these beta-2 receptors by the epinephrine or norepinephrine facilitates the release of neurotransmitters. Beta-3 receptors, they are present postsynaptically, and then these are present on adipocytes as well as detrusor muscles of the bladder. So their activation mainly promotes lipolysis. There is, what happens when there is lipolysis? There is a rise in blood-free fatty acids. Apart from that, they also cause thermogenesis, and then they also cause detrusor relaxation also. As a general rule, the beta actions are mediated mainly through cyclic AMP. So adrenaline activates membrane-bound adenyl cyclase through G-protein coupled receptors, wherein there is breakdown of ATP to cyclic AMP. This in turn phosphorylates a number of intracellular cyclic AMP dependent protein kinases and initiates a series of reactions. In the gut and bronchial muscle, there is hyperpolarization leading to relaxation of these muscles. Adrenaline. It is secreted from adrenal medulla. Nearly 80 to 90% of the neurotransmitter is secreted in the adrenal medulla. Apart from that, its secretion is accompanied by secretion of noradrenaline also. So it has got an action, it has got action on alpha 1, alpha 2, beta 1, beta 2 predominantly, but has got a weaker action on beta 3. So it's mainly secreted from adrenal medulla, nearly 80 to 90%. Apart from that, even noradrenaline is also secreted with adrenaline. So it has got action on alpha 1, alpha 2, beta 1 and beta 2, and has got a weaker action on beta 3 receptors. So let's see the pharmacological actions. So on the cardiovascular effects, so mainly in the heart, epinephrine stimulates beta 1 receptors in the heart. So wherein there is increased heart rate and there is increased force of contraction as well. So there is increased cardiac output by stimulating vasoconstriction. And epinephrine, it also increases conduction across the AV node and may produce ventricular arrhythmias. So the heart, it mainly causes increase in heart rate as well as force of contraction. There is increased cardiac output, and epinephrine increases conduction across the AV node and will produce ventricular arrhythmias. On the blood vessels, epinephrine constrict arterioles in skin, mucous membrane, viscera as well as renal beds. So mainly its action is mediated through alpha 1 effect. And then it dilates blood vessels of the skeletal muscle and coronary arteries. Mainly it is seen through beta 2 effects. Apart from that, there is increase in the total peripheral vascular resistance as well. So on the BP, moderate doses produces biphasic response. So we learn about this biphasic response in the coming slides. So whenever you give epinephrine or adrenaline in moderate doses, it produces biphasic response. So initially there is increased blood pressure, more of systolic blood pressure than diastolic blood pressure. So initially there is increased blood pressure due to action on alpha 1 as well as beta 1 action. Subsequently, as the plasma concentration of epinephrine declines, beta 2 being more sensitive to epinephrine, even the smallest dose of epinephrine has got action on beta 2. Beta 2 being more sensitive to adrenaline. So there is decrease in blood pressure. So low dose of epinephrine, beta 2 receptors being more sensitive than alpha 1 receptors. So there is fall in blood pressure. So this is called as biphasic response. So initially when you give low doses of epinephrine, there is increased blood pressure because of the action of alpha 1 and beta 1. Mainly there is systolic, there is increase in systolic blood pressure. So there is increase in blood pressure, that was systolic. It is mainly attributed due to the action of alpha 1 and beta 1. As the plasma concentration of epinephrine declines, so beta 2 being more sensitive to epinephrine, even smallest dose of epinephrine has got action on beta 2. Hence, there is fall in blood pressure. So initially there is increase in BP, then fall in blood pressure. This is called as biphasic response. Let's see here. In the picture here, as you can see, there is epinephrine is given or treated with epinephrine. So it mainly acts on alpha 1 and beta 1. As you can see here, there is increase in blood pressure. So mainly you can see systolic blood pressure. As after some time, as the plasma concentration of epinephrine decreases, so there is fall in blood pressure. This is mainly attributed due to the effect of beta 2, which is more sensitive to even smallest dose of epinephrine. So initially there is a rise in blood pressure, then fall in blood pressure. This is called as biphasic response. As you can see here in this picture, initially you treat with alpha blocker and then you give epinephrine. So there is fall in blood pressure. That is because alpha blocker, it blocks the alpha receptors. So even smallest dose of epinephrine has got predominant action on beta 2 receptors, and hence there is fall in blood pressure. This is called as Dale's vasomotor reversal. So initially in the picture here, you give epinephrine, there is increase in blood pressure, and predominantly it is systolic blood pressure is increased because of the action on alpha 1 and beta 1, as you can see here in this picture. And then as plasma concentration of epinephrine decreases, there is fall in blood pressure because even smallest doses of epinephrine, it has got action on beta 2. That is, beta 2 are more sensitive to even smallest dose of epinephrine, and hence there is fall in blood pressure. So this is called as biphasic response. In the picture B, this is called as Dale's vasomotor reversal. So initially you treat with alpha blocker and then you give epinephrine. So since alpha is blocked, alpha blocker is given. So we see predominant action of even smallest dose of epinephrine has got predominant action on beta 2, and it causes fall in blood pressure. So this is called as Dale's vasomotor reversal. In the picture C, you give a beta blocker. So there is unopposed action of alpha 1. And then you see there is increase in blood pressure. Then you give beta blocker as well as epinephrine. So there is unopposed action of alpha 1. So there is increase in blood pressure. So this is biphasic response, picture here, and then picture B is Dale's vasomotor reversal. So read this carefully. If at all you have any doubts, you can ask me or you can send me a message. And then effect of smooth muscles. So bronchial smooth muscles. Epinephrine causes powerful bronchodilation. That is, mainly it is attributed because of the beta 2 receptors. And then decrease in bronchial secretion due to mucosal vasoconstriction, alpha 1. And then on the eye, mainly causes mydriasis. So mydriasis occurs due to contraction of radial muscles of iris, alpha 1. Epinephrine poorly penetrates cornea. So aqueous formation is reduced due to ciliary vessel constriction, mainly attributed to alpha 1 action. And there is decreased secretory activity of ciliary epithelium with alpha 2, and outflow is facilitated, mainly attributed due to beta 2 action. So on the right, it causes mainly mydriasis. It has got poor penetration of cornea. On the GIT, epinephrine relaxes smooth muscles of the gut, and then there is and it reduces motility. Mainly the action is attributed to alpha 1, alpha 2, and beta 2 receptors. And on the sphincters, it causes constriction of the sphincters, mainly because of alpha 1 receptors. And then on the bladder, as well as prostate, and then vas deferens, there is relaxation of detrusor muscles. So mainly action on beta 2 and beta 3. And then there is contraction of trigone as well as sphincter muscles, thereby leading to retention of urine. And then the tone of prostatic muscles as well as contraction of vas as well as seminal vesicle causes ejaculation. So alpha 1, mainly action is because of alpha 1. So on the uterus, non-pregnant uterus constricts alpha 1 more than beta 2. And then pregnant uterus relaxes more. That is, beta 2 has got more relaxation when compared to non-pregnant uterus constricts. That is, alpha 1 has got more than beta 2, whereas pregnant uterus relaxes. Beta 2 has more relaxation than alpha 1. CNS. Epinephrine poorly penetrates into brain, but may produce excitement, tremor, stupor, vomiting as well as restlessness. Metabolic effects, hyperglycemia. It's mainly due to glycogenolase in liver and then glucagon secretion, beta 2. So there is increased free fatty acid due to lipolysis in adipose tissue, mainly attributed to beta 3 action, and then inhibition of insulin release. Skeletal muscle, it has got a direct effect on muscle fibers responsible for the tremors, and then miscellaneous effects, thick salivary secretions as well as pyroerection, mainly on alpha 1 action, sweating of palms as well as soles, M3 action, and then related aggregation, alpha 2. Therapeutic diseases. So here is a mnemonic. You can remember it very easily. Just remember A, B, C, D, E. So A represents anaphylactic shock. So mainly it is a drug of choice, or the first drug of choice, DOC, drug of choice in treatment of anaphylactic shock. Mainly it relieves bronchospasm, angioneuritic edema of the larynx, prevents release of histamine from mast cells. It's a physiological antagonist, and then maintains blood pressure. So when given intramuscular in a dose of 0.3 to 0.5 ml of 1 in 1000 solutions. So you just remember A, B, C, D, E. These are the therapeutic uses. Therapeutic use of adrenaline, and just remember A, B, C, D. A is anaphylactic shock and a drug of choice, and it relieves mainly bronchospasm, angioneuritic edema of the larynx, prevents release of histamine from mast cells, and then maintains blood pressure. Given intramuscularly 0.3 to 0.5 ml of 1 in 1000 solution. The bronchial asthma, it causes bronchodilation, and then there is decongestion of bronchial mucosa. So mainly given subcutaneously, or here in anaphylactic shock, it has to be given intramuscularly, whereas in subcutaneous bronchial asthma, it has to be given subcutaneously. So you just have to remember this. The condition and the route of administration is most important, and this can be asked in Viva also. So in bronchial asthma, it causes bronchodilation, and there is decongestion of bronchial mucosa. Subcutaneously, it is to be given in a dose of 0.3 to 0.5 ml of 1 in 1000 solutions, or as an aerosol preparation. In cardiac arrest, so it's a life-saving drug in cardiac arrest. It is used to reverse sudden cardiac arrest in drowning as well as electrocution. So it has to be given intracardiac or directly to the heart or through IV. And it has to be given in 1 in 1000 solutions, diluted 10 times. So apart from that, it is also used to prolong the duration of local anesthetic effect or action. So we have learned this in methods of prolongation of drug effect. So this is one such method, but it is used to prolong the duration of action of local anesthetic action. So it has got vasoconstricting effect of, so the vasoconstricting effect of epinephrine antagonizes the vasodilating effects of local anesthetics. So the main mechanism which we see over here is, since it has got a vasoconstricting effect, it antagonizes the vasodilating effects of local anesthetic. It also decreases systemic absorption from their desired site of action, and since they prolong the duration of action of local anesthetic, and hence they decrease their systemic toxicity also. So over here, they vasoconstrict the effects of epinephrine vasoconstricts. Since epinephrine has a vasoconstricting effect, it antagonizes the vasodilating effects of local anesthetic. Apart from that, they also decrease the systemic absorption from their desired site of action. They also prolong their duration of action. So this is how they prolong their duration of action, and hence they decrease the systemic toxicity also. So in this condition, you give the drug either subcutaneous or intradermal, and it has to be given in a combination with any local anesthetic in the concentration of 1 in 150,000 or 1 in 1 lakh dilutions. And then this is most important one, it is used to control epistaxis. Basically, it is used topically in a concentration of 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 20,000 for controlling the bleeding in epistaxis and then bleeding after tooth extraction. So basically, you remember the therapeutic uses as a mnemonic form. They are supposed to given, they're supposed to be remembered as A, B, C, D, E. A for anaphylactic shock, B for bronchial asthma, C for cardiogenic shock, D for prolonging the duration of action of local anesthetic, and then E to control epistaxis. So let's see the adverse effects of this drug, adrenaline. So due to extension of their pharmacological actions. So basically, the adverse effects are because of the extension of their pharmacological actions. So adrenaline may produce palpitations, throbbing headache, as well as tremors. And apart from that, they cause vasoconstriction. Thereby, there is increase in blood pressure leading to cerebral hemorrhage. Since they cause vasoconstriction, so there is rise in blood pressure. This rise in blood pressure may lead to cerebral hemorrhage. They also cause increased cardiac work, and contractility may precipitate angina, palpitations, as well as arrhythmias. So CNS side effects like tremors, anxiety, and headache has also been noted. Noradrenaline. So chemically, noradrenaline refers from adrenaline. It has got a NH2 group in place of NHCH3. It is a major neurotransmitter liberated from the post-ganglionic sympathetic nerve endings as well as from the adrenal medulla. So it has got action on alpha 1 and alpha 2 as well as on beta 1 and beta 3, but no action is seen on beta 2 receptors. Pharmacological actions, it mainly increases systolic blood pressure and diastolic blood pressure. Mainly the increase in blood pressure is attributed due to action on beta 1 receptors, and there is increase in peripheral vascular resistance because of alpha 1 receptors. So we notice even reflex bradycardia due to compensatory increase in vagal discharge. Cardiac output is unchanged, and there is increased coronary blood flow and decreased renal blood flow. So it has got predominant alpha 1 action, does not exhibit tails vasomotor reversal. Unlike adrenaline, this drug noradrenaline does not exhibit tails vasomotor reversal. Therapeutic uses mainly used for elevating the blood pressure, as in shock, as IV infusion. So it's mainly used in treatment of shock and has to be administered as IV infusion, that is 4 mg noradrenaline added to 500 ml of 5% dextrose. However, dopamine is preferred as it does not decrease renal blood flow. So in some conditions wherein the patient is in shock, the preferred drug is dopamine, but then even noradrenaline is also preferred. But dopamine is preferred more because it does not decrease renal blood flow. Used as a last resort where strong peripheral vasoconstriction is required. So it is used as a last resort, where you need to have strong peripheral vasoconstriction, and used in case of cardiogenic as well as hypotensive shock due to surgery or MI. Adverse effects. These are similar to that of epinephrine. IV infusion should be tapered off gradually to avoid sudden fall in blood pressure. So IV infusion should be tapered off gradually, should not be taken off all of a sudden, should be tapered off gradually to avoid sudden fall in blood pressure. Local tissue necrosis due to extravasation of epinephrine. Since it being a powerful vasoconstriction, there may be chance of development of local tissue necrosis because of extravasation of norepinephrine. Local infiltration of alpha blocker like pentolamine is effective in such cases. So if you infiltrate with the alpha blocker like pentolamine, it is much effective. It is dopamine. It is a dopaminergic, mainly acts on D1, D2 receptors. Apart from that, it has got weak alpha 1, beta 1 agonistic action, but not on beta 2. They are present postsynaptically as well as presynaptically in the brain. Postsynaptic as well as presynaptic in DA receptors, mostly in the brain or more in the brain. It has got important role in CNS. So dopamine has got action on D1 and D2. And apart from that, it acts on alpha as well as beta 1 receptors, but not on beta 2, mainly present post as well as presynaptically. Mainly acts on the post as well as presynaptic, but dopaminergic receptors. It has important role in the CNS. So action on D1 receptors mainly acts in the hypothalamus, renal as well as mesenteric blood vessels, and D2 mainly acts on the pituitary, heart sympathetic fibers, heart muscle as well as CTZ. And on D1 and D2 mainly on the limbic system as well as corpus striatum. And action on the D1 mainly increases cyclic AMP, whereas action on the D2 decreases cyclic AMP. So these are mainly present, token are mainly present, mainly act on D1 and D2, and they have got weak action on alpha 1 and beta 2 agonist, but less action on beta 2. Mainly act on postsynaptic and presynaptic, dopamine receptors. It has important role in CNS. D1 receptors, hypothalamus, and renal as well as mesenteric blood vessels. D2, pituitary, heart sympathetic fibers, and heart muscles, CTZ. And on D1 and D2, the present the limbic system, corpus striatum, and D1 increases cyclic AMP and D2 decreases cyclic AMP. Pharmacological actions, these are basically dose-dependent actions. In a dose of 2 to 5 micrograms per kg per minute, when given by IV, it acts on the D1 receptors and causes renal, mesenteric as well as cerebral vasodilatation. So this results in increased GFR, and there is excretion of sodium. So in a dose of 5 to 10 micrograms per kg, it has both dopaminergic as well as beta 1 range actions. So it also stimulates beta 1 receptors. So mainly increases myocardial contractility, heart rate, cardiac output by action on D2 as well as beta 1 receptors. So this is an added advantage in the treatment of shock. So as I've told you, dopamine has got dose-dependent actions. So as you keep increasing the dose, its action also varies. At a dose of 2 to 2.5, it has got dopaminergic range action. As you keep increasing the dose, or you keep increasing the dose, at a dose of 5 to 10, it has got dopaminergic as well as beta 1 range actions. And then at a dose of 10 to 20 micrograms per kg, it mainly on the beta 1 range and predominantly has got a cardiogenic action. And as you increase the dose to 20 micrograms per kg, mainly it has got alpha 1 range action. And then it causes vasoconstriction as well as decreased renal blood flow. Therapeutic uses, used in patients of cardiogenic or septic shock and acute heart failure, wherein it increases blood flow and then urine outflow. In threatened acute renal failure, it dilates renal vessels and produces diuresis. So adverse effects mainly causes nausea, vomiting, tachycardia. There is increase in blood pressure, ectopic beats. Apart from that, infusion of large doses for long term may cause ischemia and gangrene of limbs. Synthetic catecholamines. So drugs like isoprenaline, which has got action on beta 1, beta 2, but no action on beta, has got action on beta 1, beta 2, beta 3, but has got no action on alpha. Pharmacological actions, it mainly increases heart rate, force of contraction, as well as cardiac output. It dilates arterial subskeletal muscle, beta 2, resulting in peripheral vascular resistance. It relaxes bronchial as well as GIT smooth muscles. Mainly the action is because of beta 2. And then it causes lipolysis. There is increased free fatty acids. And apart from that, it also causes thermogenesis. It is mainly because of action on beta 3 receptors. Therapy is mainly used in Stokes-Adams syndrome, shock due to beta blocker overuse, and are rarely used in emergency to increase heart rate in patients with bradycardia or heart block. Adverse effects, palpitations, arrhythmias, anginal pain, headache, as well as flushing. Dobutamine, derivative of dopamine, has got no action on dopamine receptors. Selective beta 1 agonist, used as inotropic agent in heart failure, accompanying MI. So it's mainly used as an inotropic agent in a heart failure, which is caused because of MI, and mainly in case of MI, and used in cardiac surgery and for short-term management of severe congestive heart failure. So it is used in these conditions because it increases cardiac output without increasing heart rate, blood pressure, as well as peripheral vascular resistance. Dopexamine. It is another inotropic agent used in heart failure associated with cardiac surgery. So it stimulates cardiac dopaminergic receptors, and apart from that, it also stimulates peripheral beta 2 receptors also. Epiwarfarin, it is a prodrug for epinephrine and has got enhanced corneal permeability. So this is the reason why it is mainly used in the treatment of glaucoma. So phenyldopa has got selective D1 receptor agonist. It is a peripheral vasodilator and causes vasodilatation coronal, renal, as well as mesenteric arteries. Used in hypertensive crisis. Thank you. If at all you have got any doubts, you can reach me on my number. Thank you.